My phone? Yeah. Just grab it. All right, let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. So we discussed that all of us individually should be part of Dawah in some way, whatever way we can. The Dawah is a fard kifaya. It's an obligation that some of us have to rise up and share the message of Islam. But however, everyone has to have a role to play in it in some way, inshallah. So, why should we give dawah? Like, what is the overarching reason why we should give dawah? Yes? It's a commandment from Allah. Yes, brother? Good. But why should we give it? Like, why should we give dawah? What's the overarching reason? Yeah, we discussed that. No more prophets are coming. Yes. Yes, sister. Yes. Yes.
We are sitting on this pile of khair and
Right.
we are not sharing, we are not telling other people, because on the day of judgment, these people who have never been told or knowledge, they are going to make a case against us.
Could be, yeah, but they have a responsibility as well, by the way. What I'm saying, it's two-way street. It's not one way. Like, it's not like if we didn't give them dawah, then it becomes our problem. We have to do our part, but they have to do their part as well. Just because many of us, as like many of our sisters wear hijab, that is their dawah. There's brothers that become Muslim just by watching a sister wearing hijab. So it's partial. Allah knows the total wisdom. But here's what I want to take away from this. The number one reason why we should give dawah is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This should be our number one reason. Okay? Yes, it's a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we read this ayah about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can somebody read this ayah? 16:125. Sheikh, you want to open it? Who wants to hear? I got it, Sheikh. I'll give it to him. Somebody has it open or? 16:125. English translation, do you have?
The Arabic translation. Sorry.
So who's got a translation here? You have it? Who has it? Okay. You know why am I asking for the English translation?
I got it.
You got it? Here you go. Bismillah. Just go slow, yeah? Just a little bit at a time.
Invite to the way of your Lord
Okay,
with wisdom.
let's stop here. Invite to the way of your Lord. Now I want to ask you guys a question. If I tell my son to give me a glass of water, right? I say, son, give me a glass of water. Is that a request or is that a commandment? A commandment. Okay, why? Because I'm older than him, I'm his father, so I'm commanding him to do something. But when I ask Sheikh for a question, let's say he's, a leader of the community, I would start with please, right? So when we're asking, when Allah is speaking to us, He's speaking from the ultimate authority. He's saying invite. So is He requesting or is He commanding? He's commanding. When we look at that, when we look at the Prophet ﷺ, when he says, convey for me even one ayah, does he say in there, please convey? Or does he say convey? So is he commanding or is he requesting? So it's an amr, right? It's a command. So what we need to understand, why this is a commandment, because sometimes when we look at some ayats, right, we don't understand, like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, kul, right, say. He's not requesting. He say, kul huwallahu ahad. Say, Allah is one. He's not saying, yeah, please do me a favor, if you get a chance, tell other people about God is one. No, that's a commandment. And we need to understand the language, we need to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us. And what Prophet ﷺ is saying, if he's saying, convey for me, even if it's one ayah. This is a commandment for us to do this. Okay? Here's the point we want to take away from the next part here. How many of you have iPhones or Apple products? Okay? Yeah, maybe 7, 8 of us. Okay? 10, okay? How many of us have Androids? Okay, mashallah, more Androids here. Okay. Now, people that have more Android, this is not about, I'm not selling Android, nor am I selling Apple. So this is not about the technology lingo. The question I have, people that have Androids, why do you have an Android? What's good about the Android? Easier to share. So we had to convince the people that have ISOs, Apple products, to switch over so it's easier to share. What else can we give them to benefit from? Yes? Normally cheaper than Apple. Yes, sister? Piracy of file manipulation. So you can change some files, move them around. Okay, good. What else? What are some good reasons why someone, if you had an Android and you had to sell the product, what are the qualities you would tell the Apple buyer to switch over? The camera. Okay, what else? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get to Apple in a minute. Right now we're on Samsung. We're going to get to Apple in a minute. Okay, so let's go with the Apple though. What's good about Apple? Why should Android people, if we were to say to switch over, what would we want? Better protection. Safety, okay. Yes, you have Apple? Okay. Do you have an Apple? Okay, why would someone should switch over? Security, we said that. Anything new? Better processor, okay. Yes, brother. Holds its value. Has a friendly user interface. Look, the reason why we're explaining this, you know, we as human beings, it's in our fitra, it's in our innate disposition to share. Okay? I'll give you an example. You know, you ever seen kids? When you see children, when they're, how many of you have kids here? Put your hands up if you have children. Okay. You guys remember when your kids were little, like 1 or 2 years old, and they like to touch every single thing, right? What would they say? Look, pot. Look, table, right? And mama, look. And when you see like little girls, they'll be saying, look, butterfly. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, some people are not like that, but majority of if human beings, they're built in a way, they love to share what they like, right? It's something that's innate in us. Yes? So what we're trying to say is the number one thing we should love is what? What's the number one we should love? We should love Allah. And if we love Allah, we should want to share the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humanity. And that should be innate inside. It's already there for us to share, you know. I'll give you an example. One time, I was speaking to this Christian brother in a remote area I used to live in a small community up north. And you know, I'm always speaking about something and I'll always link Islam, always saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, the Quran says this. So they had this Christian brother, right? He was there and I said, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said so and so in this ayah. And he looks at me and I'm like, wait, he doesn't know what Allah means. So what I did is I said, let me explain, because I understood that he doesn't know the word Allah. Sometimes we use, the reason why we said to translate in English is not that, mashallah, I would like you to convey the ayah in Arabic and then translate it in English, because people need to understand what they're hearing. So anyway, going back to this brother, when I said, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and I said, wait, he doesn't know what Allah means. So what does Allah mean? Any Arabic students here? Except you, Sheikh. Yes, the brothers in the back. What does Allah mean? The brother with the red hoodie in the back, or the gray one, either one of you. What does Allah mean? The creator, okay. What is linguistically or from the Sharia perspective? Ilah. Al-Ilah, Jazakallah khair. What is Al in the Arabic language? The. And Ilah? So, is Jesus God? For some people, Jesus is God. Some people, Krishna is God. Some people, Hanuman is God. For some people, there are goddesses. Okay, we can say creator. Okay, but here's what I want to take away. This brother, when I said the word Allah, he didn't know what its meaning was, so I said, let me explain what the word Allah means. The word Allah in the Arabic linguistically means Al-Ilah, the deity that deserves to be worshipped. You know what happened? I said that to him. Do you know what happened? He started to cry. He broke down. I said, brother, why are you crying? What's happening? He's like, I've been going to the church for 2 years, and I've been asking my pastor, can you explain to me who God is? And in a simple 2 words, you explain to me who God is. Eventually, not because of me, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to guide him, at some point he took his shahada, became Muslim. Not just because of that, I'm sure there's other things, there are other factors. But what I'm trying to share is, if we explain people what Islam is, make it easy for them to understand it, it will affect their heart. Whatever comes from the heart will go in their heart. So, the point is, if we love Allah, we want to share. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, you will truly not believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. When we're talking about love here, we're not talking about, love in Islam. We don't love non-Muslims like we love Muslims. There's a difference here. What we're saying, we want love for them to have love of Islam. We want them to know who Allah is, why He deserves to be worshipped. This is what we mean here, okay? Like Imam Nawawi, he gives an explanation on this hadith, that the brother is akhi, right, in humanity. So brother in humanity is we love for everyone to be a Muslim, because we love Allah and we want them to love Allah, right? So, sorry about that little wala and bara I had to kick in there. Here's the thing. I want you to put yourself in a non-Muslim shoe. So think about this for a second. I used to work for this corporation, and I used to sit on the desk, and I had this non-Muslim boss of mine. He used to sit across the cubicle from me. And I used to always wonder, if I never told this guy about Islam, and if he dies upon kufr, will I be held accountable, like the sister was saying, right? So that's something that was in me. So what I would do at work, and I'm not telling you to do this, I'm always telling people to be wise at work, okay? Don't be like just splashing Islam. Like a lot of times they think the Muslims, if we just act like Muslims, that is our dawah, right? We don't always have to walk around with badges of Islam. I'm a Muslim, right? However, so this brother, I'm like, how do I give this guy dawah? He's my boss, so I have to be respectful. I work under him. So what I started to do is, every time I would go pray salah, I would say, listen, boss, I don't need to ask him, but I'm just like, hey, I'm going to step out and go pray, back in those days. And he would say, oh yeah, I know, pray for me. But so what I was trying to always do is to link Islam, right? Why? Because, we should feel for our brothers and sisters in humanity. Like, for example, the Prophet ﷺ was rahmati alameen. What does that mean? Mercy to man. What does that mean, mercy to mankind? Okay, but what does that mean? All of us are mankind. But what does that mean? What does that mean? Good. He's, saving us from the hellfire. Yeah, so what I'm saying is, look, the Prophet ﷺ came to teach us many things. Teach us good characters, good mannerism, how to be good to one another. But the real gift of the Prophet ﷺ, that he wanted all of us to go to Jannah. You understand? That was his main concern for humanity. So when we're talking about our brothers and sisters in humanity, if we're talking about the Prophet ﷺ, rahmati alameen, the real mercy for the Prophet ﷺ was caring about people's akhirah. And we should be thinking about it that way. So when we're people around us, I always think about, may Allah guide them, may Allah help them. This should be some dua that you should be making for people all the time. In your heart. Like many times I'm giving dawah to someone, and I'll be making dua for that person in my heart. I don't need to make it like very long and big. And in my heart, I'm like, oh, may Allah guide me. May Allah guide him by I say something that might affect them. So this is something we should have that in us, right? Why? Because we need to think about this. Look at what the Prophet ﷺ, the way he was, right? He taught us to care about other people. And caring about other people is to care about the akhirah. So when we're saying, just put yourself in a mental state for a minute. If you were a non-Muslim, would you want someone to give you dawah? I'm sure you don't have to answer this. Yes, you would want someone to give you dawah, right? Would you want someone to tell you about Islam? Of course. Many people are out there, brothers and sisters, are struggling. And they're not struggling just financially, emotionally, psychologically. They're asking for help. What is the purpose of my life? Why am I here? Where am I going? What happens to me when I die? They have these big questions. And we have the answers. So the least we can do is we can share with them, right? So this is something you need to think about. Your neighbors, for example, right? We as Muslims should be, in the month of Ramadan is coming, alhamdulillah, which is, not even a month away or a month a bit. We should be calling our neighbors over, obviously in a halal way, obviously. But we should be calling them over to your house or bring them to the masjid. We should be engaging with them. Open the doors for them, right? Because we should care about people that they not only should hear about Islam, they should have the right understanding. And this is why the masjid has a huge role to play in this. Because they are the pillars of the community, right? And that's what makes a community, is what you guys are collectively come here together, right? So what are the rewards of giving dawah? What are some of the rewards? Who can tell us? You've already been in a class. Who can tell us what are the rewards for giving dawah? Yes, sister. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. Here's a question. Yes, sister. Yeah. The red camels, yeah? Yeah. So here's what I want you guys to think about this for a minute, okay? One day I was giving a workshop to Hamilton University, McMaster. And there was a brother who came there, and he said something really powerful. And he said the companions are like the stars that you will never be able to reach. And I'm like, I thought about that statement, and it was really deep. I want you to just think about this. Many of you have your phones with you, right? I want you to open up your phone and open up a calculator on your phone. Okay? Told you, this is a practical course. It's not just sit around and do nothing. Now, I want you to think about this. When you pray Jama'ah in Salah in the masjid, what's the reward? I know Allah can give us more, but what's the general rule, Sheikh? 27. Okay, good. Let's do 27 times 5. Who can count the numbers here? 135. Now, 135, somebody's writing that out. I'm going to ask you, brother, because you're in the front. You mind? The brother in the silver. Or one of you guys. Okay. 135. Let's say now we do that for 1 year, which is 365. How much is that? 49,000. Okay. We're just rough numbers, yeah? Now, if we were to establish Salah in Jama'ah, in a masjid, for 1 year, it was 49,000, roughly, and a little bit more. If we were to do that for our 60 to 65 years of our life, so let's say 60 years of our life, what's the number? 2.9 million. Excellent. So, I know even me, don't go to the masjid 5 times a day. I'm going to be honest, yeah? I would love to. Actually, Allah has blessed me. I just moved from Milton to a place in Mississauga, and the Masalla is right down the road, so I love it. But the point is, forget what I'm happening. The point is, if we were to establish, 5 times a day, 365 days, for the rest of our life, let's say we live for 60 years, we'll get what? Almost 3 million. Let's just round it off to 3 mil. If we were to do this in Jama'ah, in the Haram, how much is one salah in the Haram? 100,000. If we were to do that times 5, it's 500,000. If we were to do that 7 days, 500,000 times 7 is how much? 3.5 million. Right? So what's the inference I'm trying to make here? Here's what I'm trying to say. The Sahabas, the companions, who were in the Haram, or they were in the Medina Masjid, which we still get 50,000. If we were to pray in Medina Masjid for 2 weeks, we would have similar rewards that we would to worship Allah in this masjid for the rest of our life. The companions were there. Now, how many of you know that the companions are buried all over the world? From modern day Turkey to Iraq to many, many parts of the world. Why didn't they just stay there and just collect the reward? Just pray in Haram. Yeah, because they understood that if they were to go out and share the message, every time when someone would pray, they'd get the reward for that. Every time they would give sadaqah, they would get the reward for that. Every time they would read one hurf of the Quran, one letter of the Quran, they would get the reward for that. Every time they would go to Hajj, they would get the reward for that. Every good deed that person will do, they would get the reward for that. But not only that person that would do the good deed, even if their children were to do the good deeds, they would get reward of that. So not only would that person get the reward, and the person who called them to that good would get the reward for that. So now I want to ask you, imagine, I want you to just think about this, okay? I just want you to practically for today's time. Sheikh Abdul Rahim Green, who's the founder of iERA, somebody gave him Dawah? Somebody gave him Dawah, right? The person who gave him Dawah wasn't a very eloquent speaker. He was a very humble, very simple Muslim. But you know what Sheikh Abdul Rahim found? That when he was establishing a salah, he was in so much khushu. And he said, wow, this guy is amazing. So yes, they had a small discussion and he explained to him about, why do you believe what you believe? He didn't get into big arguments. And he just questioned him because Sheikh Abdul Rahim was, at that time, was Christian. He was going to these kind of, monasteries and so on and so forth. But here's what I want you to think about that. That person that gave dawah to Sheikh Abdul Rahim Green, every single person that has become Muslim through either Sheikh Abdul Rahim Green or through any one of us or even myself, all of the reward is going to that person. And that person doesn't even know. He doesn't even know. But what I'm trying to say here, explain why the Sahabas were so high and why what you and I can do today, that we might not even know what is the impact of it. That on day of Qiyamah we'll have all of these hasanats that will show up on our mizan and be like, I didn't pray this much, I didn't give this much zakat, I didn't do a hajj, I didn't pray, I didn't read this much Quran. So if there was any business to get into, wallahi, this is the best business. Being serious, yeah? I'm not saying we only do it for this, obviously we do it for the sake of Allah, but this is what I want you to understand. However, I want you to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran. He says, who is better in speech? What speech is Allah speaking about here? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look at this ayah here, yeah, I'm just translation, okay? And who is better in speech? The word speech, what speech is Allah speaking about? The speech of Allah, kalam Allah. Speech of Allah, the book of Allah. Why am I trying to just get you to hone into this? That when we give dawah, our dawah should be through the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? It's very important that we're calling to people, but we're using the book of Allah, the message of the Prophet ﷺ. That should be our speech. Whether it's an ayah, whether it's hadith, whether it's something, how the Sahabas understood that. This should be our dawah, calling to this speech. And then what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and who is the one who invites to what? Invites to what? Allah. I want you to just really think about this because we'll be discussing this a little later. Is our message, our call should be to Tawheed, inviting to Allah. This is what Allah is saying. And then what? He does righteous deeds. Yes? And then what? Indeed, I am of the Muslim. So why is this important? Is one of the brothers can give me a whiteboard up here? Or can that move? That whiteboard? Yeah? Can we bring it up here for a sec? The brother will get it. Yeah, can you guys grab? Do we have something to write on? Is there a black one too or no? Just red? Somewhere where the sisters can see it as well. We'll just put it here. I think, yeah? Move this, yeah, let me move this. Yeah. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Excellent. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Excellent, excellent. That's good. Can everybody see this? That's good. We don't need to connect it. It's okay. So here's what I wanted to. This one's not working. Jazakallah khair. Yeah. Oh, yes. Up is fine. It's okay. Yeah, excellent. Can everybody see this? Don't worry about my spellings. Here's what I want you to understand here. Ikhlas, concept, and agreement. Okay? Here's what I want you to understand from this. Okay? When we look at this ayah, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, who's better than in speech than the one who invites to Allah. So what do we get from there? We are getting the concept and we want an agreement. Okay? Obviously we want to have ikhlas. So what I'm trying to show you, brother and sister, I'm giving you an example. There was one brother in this remote area and he used to help his neighbor by picking up her groceries, shoveling her driveway, and doing all the good things as a Muslim we should be doing, right? So he comes up to me and he says, Brother Ali, I've been, doing this for like last 10, 15 years. But this sister is nowhere near Islam. What do I do? So here's the question. Sheikh Abdurrahim Green pointed this out one time in one of our meetings. We have a Thursday meeting every Thursday with the global team from all over the dais. And obviously Canadian, he's from Europe, so he's Caucasian or European. One time he said something, it was so profound and I thought about it, right? He said that sometimes you being nice to the people in the West could be counter Dawah. Why would it be counter Dawah? I'm not saying don't be nice, that's not the point. So I don't want everybody to just start being rude. But why would it be counter Dawah? What do you think? It could take advantage of you, yeah. It could be sign of weakness. I want you to just think about these people's philosophy, their worldview. That's what I'm trying to get at. So I'm going to give you an example, right? When he brought this up, it really actually made me think about this. Sometimes when we're just nice with people, which is, as a Muslim, we should be. So nobody's negating we shouldn't be nice. But what happens is, because their worldview in the West here is that we are the civilized nation. And we've civilized the world. So they think you're being nice, not because it's part of Islam, is because we have brought you to our country, or you're here, and because we live civil, and you guys are uncivilized wherever you come from, right? So we've civilized you. You guys understand this? Yes. Their understanding of the worldview is more correct than ours. So what am I saying is, I met this Sheikh in Whitby one day. Wallahi, this Sheikh, mashallah, was on fire. Everybody he gives dawah to, everything he does, he links it to Islam. So here's my example. Obviously having ikhlas, sincerity, having good character is part of Islam. Getting them to understand the concept. So let's go back to this ayah. So, and who's better in speech than one he invites to Allah? So we have to give them the concept, we're calling to Tawheed, right? We have to do ikhlas, character, righteous deed, and then we have to link it to Islam, saying, indeed, I'm one of the Muslims. Means that every time you do a good deed, it shouldn't be that you're doing a good deed. It should always be Allah and His Messenger commanded us to do this. So let's say you shovel the neighbor's driveway, and they say, thank you very much, Abdullah. And you say, you know what? Thank you, John. I really appreciate this. But I want to tell you, Islam commands us to be good. We believe in a creator. We believe He's one. We believe He deserves to be worshipped. And He sent us guidance. Do you agree? So what's happened in that statement? You shoveled the driveway, but you had good character. You gave him the concept and you got an agreement. This is the point. Is not to just do good deeds. You guys understand this concept? So this is what I want you just to think about that, just to keep that in your head. Yeah? So when we're giving dawah, we need to think about this. So, look at the exegesis here from Hasan al-Basri. He says, the person who is beloved to Allah is a wali of Allah, the one who's most beloved to Him amongst the people of the earth. Who is he? The one who answers the call to Allah, which is what? Us. Calling, we're answering the call of Allah and invites the people to the same very call that he was called to or responded to, and he works righteous deeds within his response, and he declares, indeed, I'm one of the Muslims. I want you to just take away from this, is to understand, is for us to give dawah. Of course, there's huge rewards for it, but everything you do in dawah should always link to Islam. I do this because I'm a Muslim. I do this because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the heaven and the earth, and He commanded us to do this. This has to be your whole life. You go to the grocery store, you pick up the groceries, and you say this because we're Muslim, we believe in God, we believe He's one, we believe He deserves to be worshipped, He sent us guidance, and this is why as Muslims we do this. So we show them, it's not you've civilized us, because Allah and His Messenger has taught us the best way to live. That's the point. The next point I wanted to discuss with you, it makes you a companion. So, when I share this with people, the Prophet ﷺ's number one mission was to give dawah. Okay? This was his constant sunnah. Who knows that when Abu Bakr Siddiq entered, when the Prophet ﷺ was dying and he was in his bed, what was he concerned with when Abu Bakr Siddiq walked in? Who can tell us? Salat. What did he say? What did he say? Did they pray? You guys understand the point here? That the Prophet ﷺ, even his dying death, he was concerned about, is Allah being worshipped or not? Is my ummah worshipping Allah? You guys understand? This was his constant sunnah. Yes? This was his constant sunnah, to call people to worship Allah. So, the Prophet ﷺ taught that to the companions. We are now, the companions are not here, we're walking on the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ. His same risala, we're out here conveying that same message. So it makes us a companion in this way. And this is the hadith the sister was quoting. By Allah, if a single person is guided by Allah through you, it will be better than the red camels. Who can tell us why did the Prophet ﷺ use that red camels? And the brother in the back. You were in the class in Windsor too? No, okay, I'll pick on you after. Okay. Okay, who can tell us the exegesis on this? When this was given? Do you know, like when this was given, this hadith? to Ali Razilullah anhu? Where were they? You remember or no? When the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, the context. The battle of? No, I think it was Tabuk, from what I remember. So, Khaybar, sorry. So, what we're saying is, the Prophet ﷺ, when he gave this hadith, or when he told this to Ali Razilullah anha, what did they see? They saw so much wealth on the other side. And the Prophet ﷺ's dawah was so unique that the way he would say things in certain strategic moments is phenomenal. So at that time, when they saw so much wealth, at this time the Prophet ﷺ saying, if one person is guided through Allah by you, is better than the red camel. So what are we saying here? Why red camels, brothers? Because as you said, red camels were the most expensive things of that time, right? And now, what happens when two red camels mate? We have more red camels. So not only was it a most expensive item, it was an ongoing business. Yes? So what I'm saying is, if you are giving dawah, if someone is guided through us, or guided through Allah by using us, this is better than anything we have in this world. Okay? That's the point. And then we talked about, and whoever gives another a good deed will get the reward similar to the one who performs it. So, what are the consequences for not giving dawah? Yes? Backslide this one? Okay. The mic? Yeah.
But if you give dawah, but he's not come to the path of Allah or not accepting Islam or something, then how we can be benefited? What is our profit?
That's
then?
what we're going to talk about next. That's why we're here. That's exactly what we're talking about now. So, here's the question. What are the consequences for not giving dawah? Okay? When we talked about dawah here, we talked about inviting and then what? Enjoining good and forbidding evil. So let me give you an example. I was in Pakistan and I went to go buy some shoes. And I was buying these shoes and I saw some man's picture in this store. Some old man, and he had all these kind of flowers around the picture or whatever. So I asked the guy, I said, well, is this like your grandfather or something? He goes, no, this is my peer, my baba. You guys know what that means? Like he's a wali. He's a wali. So I said, well, why do you have a picture? He says, well, whenever I'm in hardship, I ask him and he makes supplication to him and then he takes it to Allah. So I asked him a question. I said, isn't this what the Prophet ﷺ forbade us to do? To ask anyone other than Allah for help. When we look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, when we look at the Quran, all we see, what do we understand? That in order to ask someone, what are the things they have to have? They have to be hadir, qadir and hay. Who can tell us what that means? Yes. And hay. And alive. So someone to ask for help other than Allah has to be able, have to be present, and be alive. That person in the picture was not alive. He can't help himself, right? And I give these ridiculous examples. Like my mom has passed away, and may Allah, forgive her and give her a Jannah for those. Can I ask my mother for a glass of water? No. She can't even help herself. Do you guys understand? So when I said that to him, and I explained this to him that the Prophet ﷺ forbade us to do, they said, oh, leave this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And they actually got upset at me. Why? Because did I do that to kind of show off? No, because we have a principle in Islam to enjoin good and to forbid evil. So when we see something wrong, we should want that to stop, right? We should enjoin them to do something good. And the good can only come from Allah and His Messenger, right? So look at what the Prophet ﷺ is saying here in Tirmidhi. He's saying, I swear by the whose hands are on is my soul, either you command good and forbid evil, or Allah will soon send down upon a punishment from Him, and you will make supplication, you'll make dua, and you will call upon Him, but He will not respond. Why this is important, brothers and sisters? Today we see lots of wrong things around us. Like, let me ask you a question. You have children. If your son was smoking, right? And I saw your son, and I know you're his dad, would you want me to tell him to stop smoking? Right? So this is part of not only our fitrah, to enjoin good and to forbid evil. Allah has commanded us. So if we're not doing that, then we're not actually understanding Islam. We're not implementing it. Now, how we do it is a secondary point. You have to have wisdom, you have to have knowledge, you have to, you have to be, you have to do it wisely. I'm not saying to go around like every person on the street and then, just to say, this is haram, bro, this is wrong, you're gonna go to hellfire. No, I mean, you have to use wisdom and hikmah. We'll talk about it in a minute. So, where do we get this principle from? Where did we just come up with this idea on our head? No. Everything in Islam is been built through principles. And one of the principles of enjoining good and forbidding evil, who knows the story of the people of the Sabbath? Do you know the story? So what's the story? There's three types of people, right? One people that are breaking the commandments of Allah. What was the commandment for the previous nation, for them? Do not work on Saturdays, the Sabbath. Yeah. So what would they do? They were fishermen. And Allah tells us in the Quran, explaining this, right? He says that they would go out and they would throw out the nets on Friday and they will pull them out on Sunday. And they said, well, we're not technically working on Saturday. So there's three categories of people. One that were breaking the commandments of Allah, and the other ones that said, no, you know what, you shouldn't do this. You're breaking Allah's commandment. And the third category is like, we don't care, it's none of our business. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, that these three categories, He mentions the two. The ones that broke the Sabbath, obviously, broke Allah's commandment, and they were punished for that. And the other category that forbade them, Allah speaks about them. The third category, Allah doesn't even mention them. So we don't want to be the ones that are not mentioned. We would like to be mentioned, right? So that's the point. So we get this principle in enjoining good and forbidding evil from that. So, any questions so far for what we've covered? Not outside of what we covered. Yes, brother? Yeah. Yes.
If you guide someone and Allah doesn't will for him to be guided?
Because you'll be protected because you did your job. That's the point. So if you just delivered the message and nobody became Muslim, but like some of the brothers go with me and to give street dawah sometimes, and they're like, you know what? Nobody spoke to me today, man. I really wanted to have some good conversations. I'm like, you just standing here, you did your dawah. Many of these sisters that are wearing hijab, this is their dawah. They don't even have to go outside. They're making that effort. So just being a Muslim is part of the dawah. Yes, Sheikh, you want to add something?
MashaAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, Brother Ali, for all your insight. And I'll mention just two points, and then if you have any question before we move to the other part, which is really important. We need you to engage in this. Just one thing you have to understand, as being said clearly, that doing da'wah is a fard kifaya. It's a collective, obligation, and it's not an option. However, the moment that you're involved in da'wah, it's not, fard kifaya anymore. It is your obligation.
Yes.
When you're involved in da'wah and somebody will ask you a question and you back up, that's really having a bad impact, not only on Islam, so like if a battle started, you cannot say, oh, I'm not part of it, and be not in there. No. So now let's say when it's said fard kifaya, so for example, Salatul Janazah, and who will take care of it? Those handful of people, they will pray for that deceased. Is that right?
Yes.
But for them, it's fard ayn. The moment they involve in Farq Kifaya, they have to finish it at the end.
Excellent.
They leave the body and now, bury it.
Yeah.
So now it became on their shoulders. Yeah, they take it off from the shoulder of others, but it became on those shoulders. So you have to understand this. This, whatever, even sometimes is an option, it's tatawwa, it's voluntarily actions. When you start that action, it became obligatory in you. All scholars agreed that not necessarily it became your obligation, except in two positions. Let's say we're talking about the jihad and there's a defense, okay? When somebody attacks you, you have the right to defend. Now, for those people in the locality, it's must on them. But for their neighbors, it's not must to join. But let's say they joined, now it became must on them. Okay? So dawah, it's one of those actions that when you start doing it, you have to go to the end, because the backing up, that's what has the worst impact on Islam and on dawah. So this is one thing you have to understand. The second point that's related to your questions, brothers. We are not responsible for the result. We should not even think of that. We have to convey, not to convince. In alayka illa al-balagh. We do our side with the best of our the manners and the best of our ability. Yep. But we are now being responsible for the result. And I'll tell you something. Nuh alayhi salam, for 1,000 years, he was invited to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many one followed him? Yeah. How many? 80 plus. Yeah. 80 plus. Some people said 84, somebody 81. 80 plus. That's for almost 1,000 years invited to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you know that the Prophet told us about some prophet, they will come in a day for judgment, وَلَا أَحَدَ مَعَهُ. He will come and nobody followed him. There are some messengers. They will come in the day for judgment and no one is following them. Are that their fault? No. The heart's in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should do our job on our side without even looking at the result. And the result is not the sign of success. Yes. So we should not even rely on that. That will bring happiness to our heart if we have the result that we are aiming for. But it doesn't mean that we are doing something wrong, as long as we are following the proper act. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. And if you have any question, what said, that we can discuss it now before we moving to the next part of our presentation. Yes, brother.
So at least give them the agreement to get them to understand that there's a creator, he's one, he deserves to be worshipped. Do you agree? They can say no, that you've done your part to get them to understand, right? They don't have to agree, but give them that do you agree? Like we'll talk about in the end, sometimes people give dawah and they never ask them to become Muslim. We had one brother he knew Islam was true for 20 years. And he said, I didn't even know, nobody asked me to be a Muslim. You understand? Because he never got that agreement. That's the point.
Okay, thank you. Sisters. So the Quran kept silent about them, never mentioned about them. Those that as a third category were mentioned in Surah Al-A'raf. So those they commit the sin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy them and send the punishment for them. And Allah protected only, as mentioned clearly, those they try to stop them from what doing. So those that enjoy the good and forbid the evil. قَالُوا مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ. This our excuse that in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we did our side. Okay. So how about the third group? That looking from some ahadith, that the third group being among those they receive the punishment as well. But the Quran never talk about them. Because Allah when he mentioned about those being saved, He mentioned only those that enjoy the good and forbid the evil.
Yeah.
Yes. So being just passive, and not active and not doing your side, it does not give you an excuse in the front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you stand before Him what you have done. So even being good Muslim, that's not enough. Not to be among the losers. I will recite the ayah and all of us we know it. Surah Al-Asr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. So Allah swore by the time. By the time, all mankind are in lost. Except like those Allah mentioned by 4 characters. And those actually, there are 2 categories, 2 parts. So, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, that's one. And then, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. So the first one, آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, that you have to be salih. You have to be good person. Okay? آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. The second part, you have to be muslih. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. So you have to be a means of guidance. So you have to be guided at first place, and then you have to be means of guidance. So these 2 points that are important in order not to be among the losers. So if you want to be a successful, you're not going to be reliable and not going to be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not enough that to be salih. You have to be muslih. So you have to be means of guidance as well. Yes. The same question. Okay. Last question before we move to the next slide.
My question is it okay not to enroll in Dawah program because it is no way to back up? So I am not confident to.
So, say like that, okay. Now, when you involve, like when you pray, okay, there are conditions that you have to follow. But there's not an excuse that, say what? Oh, because too much detail, so much, condition, I'm not going to do that. I'll give you an example for this. Now, when you pray, for example, you might made mistakes and make sahu. And you have to learn the rules of sahu. Is that right? Okay. Somebody will say, you know what? I don't have to learn that. It's too much detail, so much rules. So I don't have to know this. When I made a mistake, just, I start over and I pray, again. Is that the way of the sunnah? Is that the right way to do that? If you are doing this, then you open the door for shaitan to attack you. So similarly, if you are afraid from the consequences of the da'wah that you are doing, not doing it, then you open the doors for shaitan to attack you as well. Because remember, doing da'wah is not actually doing favor to others. You do favor to yourself. And doing da'wah, no, you are not only just invited to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you're protecting your deen.
Yes.
And we found that that's for those involved in da'wah, that's one of the good method to maintain their iman. Because you've always been alert, you've always been there. So again, you can have the option, you say, you know what? I'm not going to be involved in any da'wah activities. Okay, you choose that, but then you prevent a lot of khair that for yourself and for others that come from yourself. You get the point? So again, whatever you will do, it has impact on you. I'll give you another example. Recite the Quran. You should recite Quran in the right way. Is that right? And if somebody say, you know what, I don't know how to recite, then it's better not to recite. Is that a good choice? No. So then learn how to recite, so in order to get the reward for that. So you cannot say, you know what, I might not doing the right way of da'wah, so it's better not, to do it, that's not the right choice, for you. That's correct, But you know what? When I say da'wah, it doesn't have to be all of people they're going to be in street. Yes, any person, he cannot maybe talk to people directly. He can be an admin doing something in the background, doing other things. So the da'wah doesn't have to be that, the person that will stand and speak. Some people, they feel shy and embarrassed to be having public speaking or other activity. So da'wah has different forms, that we're going to talk about, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you cannot do the best way, at least do any way that are capable with. You know, it's very important to do that. If you cannot convey it with your word, at least you convey it with other people's word by even distributing pamphlet, you know, and doing other things. However, as I said, this is one of the levels of da'wah. We are aiming for this to equip you all to be doing openly da'wah. Do not only just, you know, with this method that's where you are using other people's words. We want you, inshallah, to have that power to stand up for your deen and talk about the da'wah. Do not feel embarrassed to do this. I'll give you that story where that person was sitting on the bus station and he was debating on himself, and he said, you know what, I want to talk to that person about Islam. This is a good time. We still have 10 minutes before the bus arrives. And then while he was debating with himself, that person came and he talked to him about his religion. The other person was making da'wah for him. He said, I felt embarrassed. That a person of falsehood and following batil, and he has the courage to come and preach me. And I'm the person of haqq. I'm not preaching that. He said that was a great lesson for me. So as a Muslims, we have a great opportunity to do da'wah in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One time I was talking to a person in Medina. I said to him, you are lucky. You are here in Rawdah, you are here beside the Prophet ﷺ, and you pray in the Masjid of ﷺ. And when he told me that, you know, you are in Canada, I said, you are lucky. I said, how come it's you're lucky? He said, yes, you are lucky. You have opportunity for da'wah. There are not a lot of non-Muslims there that you can guide and be a means of guidance. I look at it and said, you know what? You're right. You're right. The Sahaba left their comfortable zone and left their cities doing da'wah in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. So you are following their steps. That's correct. That's correct. So do not belittle any effort. Be nice, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. Last question before we start. No doubt. And no doubt, that's why we are here today, you know, inshallah, for having the proper way of da'wah. We are not questioning that all you came in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trying, and that's what we are trying to do, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm just trying to encourage you, like even might feel tired, sleepy, you know, in the weekend, but believe me, you know what, this is the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If He choose you in that way, you are being the chosen one and selected one, you know, and you're being among the few that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prays in the Quran. كَانُوا قَلِيلًا قَلِيلٌ مَا هُمْ وَقَلِيلٌ مِنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Those are few that are calling to path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you the best.
Ameen.
Brother Ali.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Okay, inshallah. Check. All right. So, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for that beautiful reminder. You know, every time I listen to Sheikh, I learn something. Yes, sister. Yes, sister. If you can't do da'wah, that's fine, as long as you're supporting the da'wah in any way, right? If you have, COVID? Look, if you make your intention that you're doing this for the sake of Allah, Allah will make the doors for you. I'll give you an example. The sister said, what if there was COVID and you couldn't do da'wah? Actually, that's really what happened to us. We were giving da'wah all over the world. And as soon as COVID hit, the whole da'wah stopped. So you know what Allah did? Allah opened up another door. What we did is, we took on Facebook pages. We have about 5 of them right now currently running. They're called One Reason Chat. So what we did, we started to advertise on the Facebook by asking, do you want to learn about Islam? What is the purpose of your life? Would you like to be a Muslim? We started to go online and we started to teach people how to give da'wah online. So not only do we have da'wah going on in person, we have da'wah happening online through COVID. And you know, every single day, there's hundreds of people that are becoming Muslim just online. We have actually a brother here in the London community, I don't know if he's here, he's one of our da'is on One Reason Chat. And he can tell you, I don't know if he's here, he can tell you that every single day, we're getting someone to become Muslim. And we have it in 5 different languages. To answer your question, sister, Allah will open the doors. You just have to make that intention. Okay? Inshallah. So, the next part we're going to move on to is called the fiqh of dawah. Okay? So when we're talking about the fiqh of dawah, the understanding of how to give dawah, basically. Okay? Brothers and sisters, I want you to really focus on this part. It's the most important part of this workshop. Here's the question. If you forget every single thing we teach you today and tomorrow, let's say you forget everything. Like everything, you know, sometimes you listen and you're like, da, 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 and just kind of waters out. And next week you're like, what was that about? If you forget everything, this is the part I want you to remember. Here's the question. What should we be calling to when we're giving dawah? Who can tell us? Oneness of God. Yes? Islam in general. Okay? Anybody else? Who said that? Jazakallah khair. We should be calling to Tawheed. Okay? Let me give you an example. There's a video I just put on our one of our channels. I usually don't put many videos on just random stuff. So I put this video out. There are some brothers, some mashaykhs in Saudi Arabia. There are 2 dawah organizations. Okay? 2 dawah organizations. One of them said, okay, we're going to give dawah to, there's a lot of Malaysian sisters and Philippines that are in Saudi that are working. And so they wanted to give them dawah. So what they did is, so they did a survey. So in the survey, they had one organization giving dawah to 50 sisters and another organization giving dawah to the 50 sisters. Okay? So the survey was done on these 100 sisters. One dawah organization only called to what? Tawheed. And the other organization called to discussions and debates. Do you know what the result of this was? The ones that were calling to Tawheed, out of 50, 40 of them accepted Islam, and 10 of them are on the way to Islam. Means they're very close to Islam. The other one that was calling to anything and everything, out of the 50, 49 of them didn't accept Islam. Only one sister accepted Islam, and even she was questioning questions. So what we learned from this experiment, that when you're giving dawah, brothers and sisters, very, very important for you to understand what Allah is telling us, right? As Allah says, say, O Prophet, this is my way. I invite to Allah with insight, with basira. So when we're inviting people, we need to call them to Tawheed, call them to Allah. So I said, if you forget every single thing, if this stays with you for the next, your life, you've already done, you have been successful. Okay? So we're calling to Allah with insight, basira. So what is basira? Vision. So is it just eyes? What's basira? Hindsight, yeah. Okay, what else? Yes, brother. Knowledge. I think many of the words in the Arabic language, to translate them, you would need a dictionary. You can't even explain Arabic words in English properly. Wallahi. So there's insight, there's knowledge, there's wisdom. There's so many things when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says invite with basira, right? And then what? And the ones who follow me, saying that we're Muslim, obviously, right? And glory to Allah, I'm not one of the polytheists. So, what we're trying to share. Here's what I want you to think about, okay? People say that, okay, how do I know this is going to work? So, everybody follows an authority, right? Like, for example, someone can say, oh, brother, I need to debate with them. I need to discuss with them. I'll give you an example. Imagine, Here's the question. Imagine you go to the doctor and he gives you medicine. Do you question the doctor? No. You take the medicine. Why do you take the medicine? He knows what he's doing. He's an authority on that subject. When you get on a plane, the pilot tells you to buckle up. Do you guys buckle up? Why do you buckle up? He knows what a plane is doing. What I'm saying, it's very rational, intuitive. So when you call someone and you're calling to Allah, the debating will finish. Because Allah is the ultimate authority. Allah knows everything that's happening. He's all-knowing and all-wise. Right? He knows the past, He knows the present, He knows the future, and He knows the hypothetical. Does anybody know what hypothetical means? Yes. So like, give you an example. If I decided to go to Montreal, right, and that decision was made, we made all the arrangements to go to Montreal, and then we decided not to go. If we were to go, what the outcome would be, Allah knows. And if we didn't go, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So what's the dalil? What's the evidence for that? Am I just this is mantiq coming up in my head? How do we come to that conclusion? Well, we know Allah knows the past, right? Obviously, because we all know the past. Right. But how do we know, where did we come up with this? Where did we come up with that Allah knows things that didn't happen if they were to happen? Yes, Sheikh, we'll ask you this time. Explain. Good. Good. That's one. But here's an ayah. There's people in the hellfire now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there's people in the hellfire now asking Allah, send us back and we will do good deeds. And what? We'll give sadaqah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about good deeds and sadaqah, right? We'll worship you and we'll give sadaqah. And what does Allah say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if we were to send you back, you would still do the same. You guys understand? So Allah knows what didn't happen. If it were to happen, what would happen? So we don't just come up with mantiq in our head. It's not just my own philosophy in my head. We need to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying He knows. So our job is to just invite people to Allah. Our job is not to convince them, as the Sheikh was explaining, right? And we talked about this one, that it's intuitive for you to know that when you're calling to an ultimate authority, if they don't submit, or if they don't accept, it's not because of your dawah. There's something else going on. Like I was in Edmonton, I was giving this workshop. You know, maybe the Sheikh can correct me if I'm saying it incorrect. I heard from one of the da'is, so I don't know, have the reference. The Sheikh can correct me now or can let me know later. That one of the da'is was explaining, and please let me know if you have the reference. He was explaining that some of the people that came to the Prophet ﷺ, they asked him that, they asked the Prophet ﷺ that if you are a true prophet of God, how come people are dying as non-Muslims? So from my limited understanding, from what I heard from a secondary source, he said that we know that Prophet ﷺ doesn't answer from his own desires or hawa. He waits for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down ayah. The reason people don't get guided is because Allah doesn't see anything good in their heart. So what I'm saying is what we're trying to explain from that. Our job is to call them to Tawheed. If they don't accept, that's not your challenge. That's between them and Allah. As one of the Sheikh was explaining to me, I was doing one class. He says when you call someone to do something good, if they reject you, it's not they're rejecting you. They're rejecting Allah. So it's not between, the matter is not between us and them. So what I'm saying is our job is to not to forget this part. Is we're always calling to Tawheed. So we'll do some role plays a little later. You'll see that people, every discussion we'll have, I want you to take that back to Tawheed. Always going back to Tawheed. Always going back to La ilaha illallah. And this would cut down arguments. Okay? Here's another thing I wanted to kind of give to you guys. Okay? Here's the tartib, the order. The Prophet ﷺ even teaches us how to give dawah. Who knows the hadith from, Mu'adh bin Jabal? He was sent to Yemen, right? And he was given, may Allah be pleased with him, he was given the tartib, the order, how to give dawah. What did he say? You're going to the people of the book, right? Okay, so we'll stop here. After the salah, we'll just finish fine. Yeah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.